Oh, there we are. Sorry. Oh, my apologies. But as I was saying, obviously we've all been hearing the speculation that ESPN is no longer going to be working with Top Rank moving forward. I just quickly talked about a few potential things that we've heard about. Potentially, money would be going from MMA, which also is leaving ESPN, to Bob Airman Top Rank, or potentially they'd be working on a smaller scale. There's also been talk about potentially them going to DAZN, which for me would be perfecto, right? That would be exactly what we are hoping for. To have all boxing on one platform, that would probably be the best thing in the history of boxing in our lifetime. But let me know what you think. Outside of you are muted, no sound. You're on mute, no sound. Can't hear you, Sean. I didn't know UFC was leaving ESPN also. That's what's been speculated. And because of that, many people felt that because they had that extra money, that money potentially would be going towards Top Rank. But if we want to be fair, the way ESPN has always operated boxing has always been a shit show. They never really put their effort into boxing like they should have. A lot of times you're watching some obscure college football game that literally nobody wants to watch and missing fights on a card, or else they split from ESPN normal to ESPN plus or vice versa. It's always been some shit show with the way ESPN has operated. So in fact, truthfully, for Top Rank to leave ESPN, I wouldn't be upset at all because, first of all, I can't watch ESPN in Taiwan. And secondly, I feel like they've just really not benefited boxing the way they've sort of showcased it on their platform. And considering ESPN is losing ground daily from where they once dominated sports in America, you figure they'd maybe be a little more professional. But they're more focused on woke politics and bullshit more than they are anything else. For ESPN to push Top Rank, they'd probably want to have four women as the hosts of the event, no men, and basically do it that way. But we will see. Worldwide leader in sports, unless it's Taiwan. Well, worldwide leader only in America. Outside of America, nobody watches ESPN, right? So when they say worldwide leader, that's typical Americanism because literally it's an American app, an American platform that people outside of America don't watch. The UK has their own sports channels, right? Every country has their own sports channels. Taiwan has their own sports channels. So nobody watches ESPN. It seems like Dana White focusing on boxing with TKO Promotions. UFC is going downhill. Didn't the UFC just have a huge event the other day? Right? I don't know if they're going downhill. He's just, diversifying. I didn't know that here. I thought ESPN was all over. Oh, no. No, ESPN is strictly American, just like Showtime. Did you see James Kirkland claim he was drugged the day before the Canelo fight? Drew and Stormy ate it up. Oh my God. Okay, so sure. Okay, James Kirkland was drugged. Also, that Canelo Alvarez could beat this overrated fighter with a mediocre resume. Let's ask this one important question. What did he do after the Canelo Alvarez fight? Was he drugged in every single fight after Canelo Alvarez as well? Because literally, he fucking did nothing in his career except get thrown in jail consistently and fucking basically eat his way out of a career. Like, you know, people are fucking mental. I mean, Kirkland was an entertaining fighter on a basic level, right? He was a hard punching, exciting fighter who was vulnerable. And those fighters sell. People love to see guys that could knock you out or get knocked out. And that's what James Kirkland was. Canelo would knock Kirkland out 100 times out of 100 fights. Exactly. It's crazy. Stormy B had a lot of boxing knowledge wasted on the LDBC. Well, people are who they are. He's a Black American guy who still buys into the whole race politics. That Bill versus Benavidez card is stacked to death. Bivol versus Benavidez. You mean better Biev? Yeah, super stacked. We're going to be talking about that on this video today as well. Wasn't Kirkland pretty good with Ann Wolfe, but he left her? Well, that's what people say. But when you mean pretty good, what was the best victory he had working with Ann Wolfe, right? He still didn't fight any world-class fighters or get any world-class victories. So, you know, you can read into it as much as you want. The problem with him is he was undisciplined, and the thing she brought was some discipline to his career. So, yeah, he probably was better when he was with her. I got Virgil Ortiz stopping Madrimov. Well, I don't know if that's going to happen. He couldn't stop fucking Sergey Bohochuk. I don't think he's going to be stopping Madrimov, but we'll get to that and more. So let's get to this. So the first fight card, obviously the ESPN card that's happening this week, Technique stopping Madrimov. Wow. Who's better, Baranchyk or Keyshawn in your opinion? Well, we're going to talk about that now. I think Keyshawn Davis is a star in waiting, right? He's everything that many of these other fighters like Keyshawn Davis and Devin Haney aren't. He's an exciting boxer puncher. Not only does he have swag and charisma, but he backs it up in the ring with his style. He's a guy who obviously is an elite amateur, silver medal Olympian, but a boxer puncher. So a guy who's able to go in there and get exciting victories with one-punch knockouts, right? But also go in there and school guys technically as well. Something that unfortunately Haney and Keyshawn will never be able to do. And because of that, these guys are never going to be superstars in the sport. But Keyshawn Davis, his personality, his smile, his willingness to talk and just, engage with the media, as well as his style. I definitely think he is a potential superstar in the sport. Obviously, Baranchyk is a bronze medal winner, I think, in the Olympics, a very good fighter. But mind you, outside of the Navarrete fight, his resume was pretty mediocre. He was a guy who didn't really get pulled over to the American market, was mostly fighting in European cards against European level fighters. So people didn't really know how good he truly was. And that's why most people figured Navarrete would walk through him. But he's skilled, tough, never been beaten, and he was able to beat Navarrete. But I don't think those skill sets are going to be enough for him to beat Keyshawn Davis. Stringer says when he started making content, he was unbiased and a good watch. Unfortunately, he got influenced by the biggest complaining crybaby on YouTube, aka Drew Titan. I don't know why anybody would even listen to Drew Titan. Keyshawn all day. I give credit to Keyshawn trying to get knockouts. All these American wannabes like Floyd with their pillow hands. Those Ukrainians are tough. Anthony Yigit is the only other guy I know Baranchyk beat. Yeah, and that's it. And, while Anthony gets a quality opponent on a resume, he's not fucking elite. So I think there's definitely levels to this, and I think Keyshawn is going to show up and show out this weekend, kind of the way he did in his last big fight, where, he totally surprised everybody with a unbelievable performance. And now, the potential for a world champion is right there. And I'm very confident that he can do it. So here's the card this weekend, Friday, 14th, New York City, Brad Goodman, ESPN. So, of course, you got Baranchyk and Keyshawn for that WBO. Let me think for a second. Yeah, the WBO world title. And then after that, you got some good opponents, right? That's the good thing about ESPN. They consistently are developing and building up young, exciting fighters. And this card is just stacked with them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe 10, but I'm not sure who 10 is. I assume that he's Juan Manuel Lopez's son, but correct me if I'm wrong. But of course, you got Baranchyk, Keyshawn. I think that's obviously going to be a great fight. Xander Zayas, I'm not too familiar with who he's fighting. I think this guy's a German 154-pound fighter. But for Xander Zayas, we know that he is on the cusp of potentially getting a world title fight himself, right? Obviously, Puerto Rican, huge fucking built-in fan base with him. He's a bit of a boxer puncher too, but he's been a little up and down, a little up and down. Obviously, fighting this guy is not going to win over anybody, but it's an undefeated fighter. Obviously, another fight in your career moving towards a potential world title fight this year. I'm not sure off the top of my head where Xander is ranked by most of the sanction bodies, but I do think he's ranked high by the WBO. So we'll see exactly how that works out for him. Sergio says Dennis is a bit old for Keyshawn now. He always was in the shadows of Lomachenko. Yeah, and that's true too, right? This opportunity may have been better if it was, say, 4 years down, earlier for him. Obviously, he's been waiting around for a long time. Wasn't able to sort of ride the coattails of Usyk, Lomachenko, and Gvozdyk to the American promoters, and now he's got a belt. The opportunity is there. If he wins this fight, all the stuff we're talking about is no longer relevant. Now he becomes a real relevant Ukrainian world champion. But if the fight unfolds the way we assume it's going to unfold, he's going to be an afterthought, right? That's boxing. Then, of course, we got Jared Anderson. Speaking of an afterthought, a guy that people thought potentially could be that next great American heavyweight. And of course, coming off of the Bakole domination, getting his ass beat up by Bakole. And anyone who watches my channel, I told you that's going to be a dangerous fight. Don't be surprised to see Bakole win. And of course, that's how it unfolded. But I'm a Jared Anderson fan. I ain't a hater. Obviously, he's bouncing back against a very mediocre opponent. But what would you expect coming off of a knockout loss? They're trying to build his confidence, get him back into the routine, potentially try to work on some of the deficiencies that people had been talking about since the Martin fight, right? Where he was getting hit too much. And the writing was kind of on the wall at that time. But he got through it and fought through it. So people thought, oh, yeah, okay, not a big deal. He will obviously continue to improve. He's super young. But, he bit off more than he could chew because of that Saudi money. And, I don't know if he's going to live to regret it or not. But as boxing fans, it's always good to have a heavyweight on a card. Then, of course, Rohan Polanco, Dominican Republic guy, looks good, fighting Jean Carlos Torres. Just an opponent. But Polanco, 147-pound fighter, good quality guy, looks solid. It'll be interesting to see when he's going to get into the running for top fights at 147. Obviously, it's a division right now that has a lot of openings, a lot of opportunities. There's no real dominant fighter right now. There's a handful of people. When you talk about Ryan, Tio, obviously Devin Haney, Boots, Stanionis, Mario Barros, fucking Howard, not bad. And then you throw guys like Polanco and a few other guys in there. The division is not as bad as people sort of make it out to be. The problem is we need to get these guys to fight one another. And only then are you really going to really be able to see how good the quality of people are in the weight class. Technique says Branchek beats him. He's the better boxer. You think Baranchek's a better boxer than Keyshawn Davis? No way. But Keyshawn is massive. He's way bigger than him. Yeah, way taller, way longer. Yeah, that's going to be a big hurdle to get through as well, because unlike Navarrete, Keyshawn Davis is technically a quality boxer, right? He's been in with tons of guys like Branchek, right? Amateur European type of guys, and he's dominated and beat all of them. The only guy that showed that he was maybe too good in the amateurs for him was, of course, the Cuban. Man, they got Nico Ali in the prelims. Well, to be fair, Nico Ali is coming off of an injury, coming off of some less than stellar performances. Because of his name, he really got thrown into everything real quick. And obviously the level of opposition jumped up fast. And, maybe it's better that you treat him with kid gloves, right? Excuse me. And so, I don't mind him being on the prelims. He's getting opportunity, working fights, being like a color commentator. So he's making money off of that side of the fight card. Obviously, he's getting money as well. But, A guy like him, he's got some big power in his right hand, but he also gets hit too much, right? And they need to sort of work on some of that stuff. Obviously, a guy didn't have a long amateur pedigree, so there's definitely a lot of things he can improve on. Abdullah fighting another tin can. Andy Cruz definitely beats him, but yeah, I'm not sure about Kranchek because of size and disadvantage. I don't think Cruz beats Keyshawn in the pros because pros is way different than the amateurs. It ain't 3 fucking rounds. I was hoping he'd get a real opponent this year. If Keyshawn wins and Zepeda wins, do you see that matchup happening? Well, Zepeda is scheduled to face Shakur. A fight that you could expect to happen with Keyshawn is Raymond Muratalla, right? That's the most obvious, most likely fight, in-house top rank fight, right? So that's a fight that you can probably sign, seal, and deliver at this point. Of course, on this card, one of the fighters I hate most, Vito Milenicki Jr., a tin can fucking PBC fighter that somehow got picked up by ESPN. I don't know why that happened. And then, of course, Abdullah Mason against Manuel James. Manuel James is not too bad, right? I think it's also a 10-round fight, which is good because obviously Abdullah Mason has mostly been doing 8-rounders. So at least now you fight a better fighter, a 10-rounder. So, you get more rounds to sort of test you and challenge you. But yeah, Abdullah Mason really he's at that point where you don't want him to stagnate. You want to make sure that he's challenged. And he was challenged in his last fight. Didn't he get dropped? Is that just me? Or am I thinking I saw something I didn't think? I thought he got dropped or hurt in his last fight. So, there's definitely things he needs to make sure he improves on. But obviously, the better competition, got dropped twice. Yeah, the competition you face is going to be what helps you motivate, right? If you're fighting tin can after tin can after tin can, you're kind of going to stagnate and you're never really going to force yourself to improve. So let's hope this James is a better fighter than expected and sort of gets Abdullah Mason focused. Obviously, getting dropped twice in his last fight, that's going to obviously play into it as well. Then, of course, you got Delonte Johnson. Delonte Johnson looks good. I don't know what his upside is or his pro potential. He's long. He's a good boxer, obviously good amateur pedigree. Not much power in the pros so far. Pretty skinny. But, when you think right there with Keon Davis, Walsh, Delonte, Abdullah Mason, Maliki, Polanco, Anderson, Zayas, and Keyshawn, you got 9 up-and-coming fucking highly regarded young fighters. If 5 of them turn out to be world champions and really relevant, you're killing it, especially if one of them is fucking Jared Anderson. Because we know that heavyweight money is bigger and bigger and better. I'm going to put some cash on that one. Callum Smith beats Boazzi. That's what I'm picking too. I definitely think he beats him. That's what gave Moses Atome Prospect of the Year because of Abdullah's last performance. Also, just better opposition. He's fighting legitimate opposition, whereas Abdullah Mason's fighting guys nobody's ever seen before. He got dropped, hurt bad, and John didn't make a video talking about exposed. Imagine the videos if that happens to someone like Emiliano Vargas. Yeah, no, it's true. That guy is so fucking, see-through with his hypocrisy. If a non-black fighter who was highly hyped got dropped like that, he would have fucking made a video 10 seconds after the fight. But because it's Abdullah Mason, even though he's consistently sort of exposed himself as well, being shitty on not Abdullah Mason, but on other guys as well, like Boots Ennis, who he really shit on for a long time. But for Abdullah Mason, he's not going to say anything negative about him. Never, never, ever. But, some people can't just be fair and honest boxing fans. He criticizes me, but compared him to me, I'm a real boxing fan who supports boxers from around the world, regardless of fucking country of origin, ethnicity. Obviously, I favor certain style fighters because I prefer boxer punchers, more exciting fighters, as opposed to more boring boxer mover type of guys, regardless of race. I was never a Callum Smith fan. I'm not a huge Bivol fan. I was never a big Fury or Usyk fan, right? There's just some styles that for me are like, mm, 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 mm. Sean, is the worst meltdown you have from JB over Canelo Crawford? Huh? What meltdown? What about it? I don't know. Machado, he can't stop making Canelo videos just because he can sense that Canelo will end Bud's career. Well, that's really why it's coming out, right? Coming out in front of it, putting out excuses now. So if Canelo does knock out Bud Crawford, it's going to be, well, it's an uneven playing field. If they were the same size, blah, 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 blah. Yet you never heard him say any of that about Lomachenko and Devin Haney, right? Was that a fair playing field? Well, when Devin Haney was a welterweight compared to a 130-pound fighter in Lomachenko, right? This is the same guy that praised Clarissa Shields for beating a woman who's 5-0, but yet has criticized people who literally beat ex-world champions, name opponents, and quality fighters, right? Just because it's not the fighter you wanted doesn't mean it was a bad opponent. But Clarissa Shields fought a 42-year-old girl who was 5-0 for undisputed world title, yet the girl didn't even have a world title. The hypocrisy. That's what I meant. Sorry. Exactly, Sean. They get their excuses ready before they even have their predictions ready. Exactly. People are they're not about boxing. They're about fucking fanboyism. Like, I support fighters, and when my fighters lose, they lose. It is what it is. I still support them. I'm still a Donaire fan. I still like fucking Pacquiao. I still like Lomachenko. I still like Golovkin. It doesn't bother me when they lose. It's part of the sport. Would I prefer if they fucking never lost and they dominated and did fucking cartwheels fucking on their nose? Yeah, of course. Of course I would. But that's not fucking realistic. That's not the way sports fucking unfolds. Just ask anyone that's a huge Kansas City Chief fan, right? People are talking about how this guy was better than fucking Tom Brady. He's the best quarterback in the history of the sport. He's better than Tom Brady. Oh my God, blah, 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 blah. They were blowing so much smoke up fucking Mahomes' ass, right? And the refs giving him every call under the sun. But people lose. Even Mahomes lost. Actually got fucking battered and beaten. Pound for pound, what's up? All good, my man. JB is going to crash out before Crawford on Canelo even steps in the ring. Well, probably, yeah. You won't be surprised, right? Come on, Kentucky. I need Kentucky to beat Tennessee at home. Can't lose these fucking games. Tom Brady is better. At this point, Tom Brady has done more. There's no denying that, right? Maybe Mahomes will go on to be better. Maybe. But, people are so quick to look for somebody of ethnicity to push over Tom Brady. People forget already how dominant he was. Totally forget it. But that's the way the world revolves. If you're a non-black athlete, it's hard to give you credit because, you're only really getting credit because you're white or, whatever. Vitaly, what's up? I've missed beginning. What's your prediction, Sean, for Branchek? What chances he got? What he need to do to win? I don't think he can win, but obviously a guy like him, a lot of experience, is able to win, making fights ugly and rough like he did against Navarrete. So obviously that's what he needs to do, right? He needs to really make it a tough fight, a grinding out fight, make Keyshawn Davis uncomfortable as much as possible. But Keyshawn's been in that situation when he fought Meduno, who's going to be fighting this weekend, and we'll talk about that later. That fight, there was tons of dirty tactics, all kinds of shit. And Keyshawn dealt with it, right? He didn't crumble. He was able to fight through it and still get the victory. Obviously, Branchek is a more skilled, better fighter with more experience than him. But I think that kind of experience definitely is, what do we call it? When you fucking, heat up your blade, make sure that it's stronger. I definitely think that fight and the other one that was a no contest type of thing, disqualification. Those two fights definitely, helped him prepare for this moment. So I do expect Keyshawn Davis to win. Mahomes can't even surpass Brad Brady, especially since Tom beat him at the Super Bowl at the age of 44. That definitely is something that is going to be hard to surpass for sure. Then, of course, we got this UK card out of DAZN. I'm not going to say this is a boring ass fight that I'm probably not going to watch, because I'm probably not going to watch it. First of all, it's going to be Saturday night from like 3 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock in the morning, my time. So chances are I'm going to be fucking snoozing and not fucking paying attention to this at all. But nonetheless, it's a quality fight. Obviously, the winner of this should become the WBO 140-pound champion, especially since we know that Tio is maneuvering towards 147 pounds. And Jack and Barboza definitely deserve that WBO title. The question is, which of these two guys do you think can win it? Both very boring, right? Obviously, both guys that are real defense first. Catterall is a little more awkward and unorthodox in the way he fights. Barboza is a lot more, traditional, conventional. I'm sort of leaning towards Barboza. On my prediction, I pick Barboza because he's a much more active fighter, right? And I think that activity is going to help him win rounds against Catterall. We saw Catterall obviously fight Prograis and edge that fight very close. And in truth, I mean, as a boxer, he should have been able to beat Prograis far more convincingly, in my opinion. But, I just think Prograis is not what he once was. He doesn't have very good legs. So a guy who's a boxer should have been able to just win rounds far more convincingly. So I'm leaning towards Barboza to beat Jack Catterall. What do you guys think? Who do you think is going to win this fight? Obviously, it's a good fight, good matchup. Two legitimate 140-pound fighters, top 10 guys. Both have been sort of hard done by boxing, specifically at the 140 pounds. Catterall should have already been a champion, and maybe Barboza as well. Machado's leaning towards Catterall. Machado says, if Janibek versus Shiraz, a done deal. No, I don't think it's a done deal, but I think that's where everything is leaning, right? Once Janibek is able to win that WBC title. I think Catterall wins this fight. Look, everybody's picking Jack Catterall. Don't underestimate Barboza. Barboza is a very good fighter, right? Conventional, tight. I think he's got better legs. He's also taller and longer. I definitely think he's going to have a good fight. I think he's going to win. I don't know if he's going to stop Jack, but to be fair, I would not be surprised if he ended up stopping Jack either, right? I'm not going to say it's going to happen, but I would not be surprised if he did. But let's look at this card. This is definitely a UK card. So unless you're from the UK, you're probably not that interested in it. Obviously, Catterall and Barboza is the most interesting fight for, casual fans and American boxing fans. Under that, you got Reese Bellotti against Michael Gomez Jr. Not a bad fight. Zalfa Barrett versus James Dickens. Name opponents, right? Bellotti, Barrett, Dickens, all named fighters, all have been in big opportunities before, but have all shown that they're really kind of European level, right? They're not domestic, but they're European level fighters, not really world class. The guy I'm mostly excited about on this card, really more than anything, is UK Olympian, silver medalist, Pat McCormick. Pat McCormick is fighting Robbie Davies Jr. And this is a great fight. It's a great fight, man, right? Pat McCormick, obviously people really have a lot of expectations for him as the next great UK sort of professional. He's got all the tools. He looks good in the amateurs. He was great winning worlds and Olympic medals. Obviously, he's got the physicality as well. Very good fighter. And fighting Robert Davies Jr. is a very solid fight. And I think this is his 6th or 7th professional fight. So I would think, he's kind of sort of on the same level as Cruz, the Cuban Olympic gold medal who beat Keyshawn Davis. And I think Cruz beat McCormick as well in the amateurs. I think they're sort of being moved similarly. I sort of felt that McCormick would have been fast-tracked a little more so, but maybe they remember that other UK fighter who was like an Olympic medalist, and the first time they stepped him up at welterweight, he ended up getting knocked out. So maybe they're a little skeptical about being too quick. Usuma says Barboza is not a big puncher. No, he's not a big puncher. But it's not about being a big puncher. It's about cracking a guy solidly. And I definitely think he has the opportunity and ability to crack Jack Catterall with some clean shots. Did you see the video of Luis Neri sucker punching his opponent? I did see that. What a fucking douche that guy is, eh? I used to talk to him on social media and he was pretty friendly. But just what he's done to his career, fucking Christ. And that's against a Japanese fighter. This is a guy who was lifetime banned in Japan. The only reason he was allowed to come back is because they wanted Inoue to kick his ass. And so they allowed him the opportunity, and Inoue kicked his ass. Now he's coming back, and this is what he's doing again. Like, what a fucking dumbass. Like him and the Filipino guy, those two dudes are fucking idiots. And the Filipino dude, even more so, because he literally fucking talked himself out of the Inoue payday. Right, the biggest payday of his career, he literally fucked that shit up. At least Luis Neri got his big payday, right? But man, Luis Neri's moving up to 126. Good luck with that. Too short. He's going to carry more weight. Oh, fucking Espinoza would fucking destroy him. I mean, Figueroa kicked his ass and stopped him, right? And Figueroa, obviously, is a guy who just got beat by Stephen Fulton. So, well, he's a good fighter. He's not a super fucking star or elite. I think Espinoza would fucking destroy him. But Luis Neri, right, he's always dangerous. He's always got that power. Let's go, Kentucky. Go, go, go. 1 minute to go, up by 8. It's looking good for me. Defensive stop. There we. Oh, yes, good. Oh, don't call that a. They called that a foul. Man, the refs in college basketball, they fucking hate Kentucky. The calls they put against them are ridiculous. This guy just head faked and went under and then fucking got blocked by 2 guys on the other side, and somehow they called that a foul. It's some weak ass fucking shit. Casemiro is a clown, but he's quite accomplished 3-division world champion. Yeah, but who did he beat for any of those titles? Right? Having 3 weight class division is nice, but when you look at the guy's resume and literally didn't fight fucking anybody, at the end of the day, who fucking cares? Like, literally. Like, if you become a champion, you never unified, or you didn't even fight quality guy to win the title, and you're just winning fucking basically what were vacant belts, then really, who fucking cares? Like, opportunities were given to you. You capitalized on them. That's what you did. But you never really did anything with your career. I think he's very overrated. Obviously a power puncher, but he's no different than fucking Magsaya, right? Also a fucking overrated Filipino fighter. Have you liked Cooper Flagg so far this season? I loved Cooper Flagg. He's fucking been dominant. And I hate Duke. I grew up anybody but Duke. I was a fucking UNLV fan, a Michigan fan, right? Any team I could support, not named Duke. It's kind of like Boston. Charlie Edwards, no. Let's not talk about Charlie Edwards. Did he beat Rigo Casemiro? When did he fight Rigo? Zolani Tete is the best win he had, but mind you, Zolani Tete was so inactive, failing PED tests. He fought Rigo. When did he fight Rigo? I know Rigo lost to the guy that Junto Nakatani beat, but I can't recall fucking Casemiro. Oh, yes, that's why I can't fucking recall, because that was one of the worst fucking fights in boxing. Yes, I recall now. Fucking terrible matchup. What a fucking boring ass fucking fight. Oh my God. Yeah, that's the kind of fight you'd rather just forget because it was so fucking terrible. Definitely some good wins. Well, Charlie Edwards is nothing. Tete is good. Rigo is good. But mind you, both Tete and Rigo were well past their best when he beat them. When they both run for 12 rounds, oh my God, what a fucking shit fight. Rigo ran around for 12 rounds. AB is a 4 division champion. Best win is an old Paulie who he barely beat. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you know, he's the example. This was the guy that people were saying was going to be the next Floyd Mayweather, and him being a 4-way champion. And John always uses him as an example. But when every good name on his resume beat him, every good name that he fought beat him, and the best one he has is a fucking overrated Paulie Malignaggi, right? Then how much praise can we give him? Like, not to say he wasn't talented, but he fucking was his worst enemy. He ruined his career. That's typical of the PBC fighters. They all fucking were guys that ruined their careers because they were unfucking disciplined, right? Overpaid, undisciplined fighters under fucking Al Heyman. And none of them lived up to expectation. Literally none of them lived up to expectation. You tell me one fucking PBC fighter that lived up to expectation. AB, Charlo, Spence, Tank Davis. Not one of those guys is fucking Deontay Wilder. Not one of them lived up to expectation. Wilder fucking was one-dimensional. We knew he'd get fucking beat because he fucking just relied on his power too much. Fucking Spence, the first time he fought a legitimate top-level fighter, he got beat up and knocked out. Charlo got beat multiple times before he became undisputed, got a big payday, and fucking basically is retired from the sport. His brother is a mental case. Fucking Broner was a mental case. And fucking Tank Davis would rather talk on social media than actually beat anyone in the ring. Ponce de Leon should won over AB. I remember that was very early in his career. Yeah, that was one of the better wins he had, even though people think that he lost the fight. Nice. Kentucky won. 5th win in the AP top 10 this season. You know, they might not be a number 1 seed, but they're definitely going to be probably 5 to 8 seed in March Madness. And that's good. That's quality. At least you're not going to have to play like killer teams early on. Was Christian Laettner with Duke? Christian Laettner was with Duke. Fucking Bobby Hurley, Grant Hill, Christian Laettner. AB was number 2 on some pound-for-pound lists. And that was all because of fucking Floyd Mayweather comparison and working with Floyd, right? You know, people love to fucking tie people with Floyd to market them. Same way they did with Tank Davis, Errol Spence as well. And all that does, it's kind of like when they talked about all these guys that were going to be the next Michael Jordan, like Harold Miner, the kid from St. John's, Dominican kid. I can't remember his name. He's good for St. John's, but in the pros, fucking he was nothing. Great high school player. And there was a bunch of guys like that. But you put those kind of expectations on a guy, man, you're ruining their career. And that's what they've done. They've ruined these guys' careers consistently. Here we go. This is what we've been waiting for all fucking year. Beterbiev versus Bivol 2. What a fucking card this is. I mean, what can you even say about this card? It's so deep that I mentioned last time in my video that Chris Mannix made a good point. If you would have split this card into 2 cards or maybe 3 cards, the amount of young fighters you could have put on the undercard and gave them recognition and opportunity and paydays, you know, would have really been helpful for a lot of young up-and-coming fighters in the sport of boxing. The fact that you make this card so deep, so dominant, it's good and bad, right? It's great for you and me as boxing fans because who wouldn't want to pay $25 to $50 for this card? This card is a once-in-a-lifetime type of card. Dubois versus fucking Parker. I'm leaning towards Parker for the upset. I think Beterbiev is going to be better against the second time around. Shakur versus what's his face. That's probably the most lopsided out of all of them. But I see that kid, if he fights like Sean Porter, he could have some serious success against Shakur. Kind of like Sean Porter had success against Paulie Malignaggi and what's his face? Devin Alexander, right? Pure boxers. Yet his physicality, crowding inside, using his physicality against them to push them backwards and hold them and hit them and beat them on the inside was too much for them over a 12-round fight. And I think potentially Schofield may be able to do some similar things against Shakur, but he just doesn't have enough experience, I think, at this point to really do well in that case. And then fucking Adames Shiraz, great fight. I think Shiraz is an excellent fighter. I do expect him to win. Ortiz Madrimov, man. Like, Jesus Christ, man. What a fucking excellent fight that is. Ortiz was in a great fight with what's-his-face recently. Madrimov was in a great fight with Bud Crawford. Now you throw these two guys together and fucking Christ. It's a 50-50 fight. Anybody could win that fight, literally. And then Zhang versus Kabial. I'm picking Kabial to win that fight. I'm going for quite a few upsets. I mean, obviously Parker's an upset. Beterbiev's not. I don't think Schofield is going to beat Stevenson. But Shiraz is the sort of upset against Adames, the champion. Madrimov is the upset over Ortiz. I got Kabial beating Zhang. And then I got Smith beating Buatsi. So out of these cards, I'm picking the fucking B side in almost every single fight outside of Beterbiev and Shakur Stevenson. What do you guys think? Who are you picking for these matchups? I looked at the odds on Dubois Parker. It looks like they're underestimating Parker stylistically. I can see him win this fight for sure. I mean, it wasn't that long ago where people thought literally that Daniel Dubois was just a fucking one-dimensional, flat-footed fucking quitter that got hit too much, right? So, what's changed? A victory over Hrgovic, who may have been overrated, and a victory against fucking AJ, who most likely was fucking shot, right? So, you could look at those two wins, which were great wins, and potentially see some serious flaws in those opponents. So Parker is coming off of great wins of his own. And like Dubois, he's come through some hurdles as well. So he understands what it's all about. He's been a world champion in the past. Obviously has a better resume, been in with better fighters, has more experience. Yeah, I think it's a good fight. Both of them have been knocked out by the same fighter. So, I don't know how you can use that really against one or the other, but yeah, nonetheless, fucking unbelievable card. What do you guys think? Who's going to win, Buatsi or Smith? Tell me in the comments. Who's got Buatsi? Who's got Smith? I like Buatsi, and when he came out of the amateurs, I really was real stoked on him. But obviously his team wasn't, because the way they've moved him, they've really fucking thrown his career into the fucking garbage can. Now he's got an opportunity to fight Smith, but Smith's a legitimate fighter, has legitimate wins, went 12 with Canelo, beat George Groves, obviously, has been in with quality opposition. Whereas Buatsi, what's the best win he's had, right? I don't know what's Buatsi going to do when he's in with a guy who's more experienced, with a better resume, hard puncher, physically bigger than him. But I thought skill set wise, Buatsi was the better fighter, more skilled fighter. Smith, I've never been impressed with Buatsi. I think Smith wins by KO. Whew. Can you imagine if he KOs Buatsi? Fucking Christ. Buatsi should have took that Anthony Yard fight. What about Adames versus Shiraz? I know none of us are any UK people in the crowd. I don't think so, but obviously UK fans are going to have a bit of a different perspective with these fight cards, right? I like Shiraz, but to be fair, Adames is a pretty good fighter who's looked better and better since he's been at middleweight. So it's a very good fight. I would not be surprised if Adames knocks out Shiraz, but I'm leaning towards Shiraz. Yeah, I don't know if he's going to get the TKO, but I do expect him to be able to win the fight. Singer thinks I got Shiraz Machado, Shiraz by TKO. Perez is going with Adames. Yeah, see, that one's a little more split. What about Zhang versus Cabial? I think a lot of the money is leaning on Zhang because of his victories, his size, his personality, his behemathism. But I'm leaning towards Cabial. Cabial's looked great when he beat Chisora years ago, when he fucking upset the Canadian Russian. And then obviously he had another great performance against the Cuban kid who people were really fucking excited about. And he went there and took that guy apart. And that was one of the most surprising fights, I think, of that year. Just the way he was able to literally take that guy apart. And even if that Cuban was injured and not quite at his best, he's a Cuban, man, with tons of experience against elite quality fighters. If you don't know how to survive, right, in a ring as a Cuban with all that experience, I can't imagine, right? I can't imagine. I think he could put fucking Roberto Duran in with Cabial, and he would have fucking went 12 rounds with him just because he knows how to survive. Cabial wins by decision. Never seen Cabial, so I'll just hope for a good fight. Yeah. Also, obviously the big Chinese fighter, Zhang, has tons of power, but he also gasses out hard. And outside of the first 3 or 4 rounds, he doesn't bring much. So I think Cabial's smart enough to realize that. And don't be surprised if Cabial definitely makes him hunt him for the first 3 or 4 rounds and then starts walking to him and hitting that body, because his body work has been fucking stellar. It's either Cabial by points or Zhang by KO. I would not be surprised if Cabial fucking stops fucking Zhang. Zhang is a low volume puncher. Yeah, and that's definitely not a good thing. I struggle to really be a fan of low volume punchers. I like Tank Davis. He's explosive, but because he's such a low volume puncher, I don't love him. Canelo, who I respect, but I've never really been a fan of him. Obviously, I was a Golovkin fan. Similarly, right? Gas tank seems limited, never has fucking high punch output. So, I think he's just not as good as he potentially could be if he fucking let his hands go. If you were able to throw twice as many punches, I think you'd be twice as effective. I don't think any of the guys he's fought recently would have fucking went 12 rounds with him if he was more aggressive, put his punches together, and threw twice as many punches as he did now. He probably would have been far more competitive against Bivol if he was able to do that as well, i.e. better BF. Zhang hasn't been dropped since he fought AJ in the Olympics. Yeah, but who has he fought? Outside of his last 2 or 3 fights, he's been in with fucking bum-ass opponents. He looked like he was going to die in that ring against that American guy a few years ago. I can't remember who it was. Was it Forrest? Fuck, man. That dude literally looked like he was going to die in the ring. I'm surprised it shows you his mental fucking acumen that he still was able to go the distance and he didn't quit. But he definitely looked like he was fucking done. Then, of course, we already mentioned Ortiz versus Madrimov. Who's got Ortiz? Who's got Madrimov? I mean, Machado was picking Ortiz, right? His second fight with GG was his best fight. He threw a lot of punches in the fight. Yeah, he was smart, right? He pushed Golovkin back and was far more effective because now Golovkin wasn't able to stalk him and didn't catch him on the ropes and wasn't as effective as he had been in the first fight. Wilder, Parker, Hrgovic, and Joyce. It's a shame Nello was a limited gas tank. If he didn't, he would be a demon. Yeah, that's it, eh? Ortiz TKO. Canelo needs to do more road work. Yeah, but he's always been the same, even when he was fucking young. And when you're young, he was probably doing lots of road work. Now you can't do as much because, your ankles, your fucking knees, all that stuff starts catching up to you. But you could do a lot of pool work, right? Now pool with resistance and everything else It's easier on your joints. He's got fucking millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. That guy could put the fucking pool with the equipment right in his living room. I think Ortiz wins, maybe by controversial decision. Luckily, I don't think so far in Saudi Arabia we've had too much controversy, have we? Has there really been one fight that was really controversial so far on Saudi Arabian cards? I know some people tried to make the Crawford fight with Madrimov controversial, but I don't think it was. I felt Crawford won the fight. Obviously, he wasn't dominant, but I felt he did enough to win. Madrimov didn't. And then Beterbiev, I don't think that was controversial either. If Bivol would have eked out a decision, I wouldn't have been opposed to it. And with Beterbiev eking out a decision, I'm not opposed to it either. I thought it was a very competitive fight. Both guys looked great. Ford Ball. Was it controversial? Why? You think Ford won the fight? Because I don't think Ford looked great in that fight compared to how he looked in his previous fight prior to that. Ortiz had a good jab. When he uses it, he's going to really need it. Maybe the Ortiz fight versus fucking what's-his-face. That might have been one of the more controversial fights. Canelo do some big combinations versus Josesito Lopez. Well, fuck. When is Ball fighting Dehaney? I smell an upset. Can you imagine if Dehaney beats Ball? After Ball talking about he's the A-side with a Nui. Oh, my God. I think it could be one of these fights in which, depending on what you like more, you can score it either way. March. Yeah, coming up. Yeah, this card is great. I see they just added this other fight on this card, Bradley Ray versus Constantino Nanga. Does anyone know who those people are? Like, I don't know why they needed to add another fight, especially two people that I've never fucking heard of. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You got like 7 fucking headline fights, and then you got a fight where literally it should be 8th on the fucking card because God only knows who those guys are. But maybe it's me. Maybe UK boxing fans are familiar with these two people, but I have no fucking clue. None whatsoever. But look at this promotional card. Bob Arum, Tom Brown, Oscar De La Hoya, Eddie Hearn, Ben Shalom, and Frank Warren. You know, I saw Ring IQ today talking about how some guys are upset because PBC, Al Heyman, gets so much criticism thrown at him, yet Turki Al Sheikh doesn't get criticism thrown at him. Yet there's all kinds of people all over YouTube fucking criticizing Turki Al Sheikh. So you make that statement. First of all, you expose yourself as being an idiot because both of those guys have come under fucking tons of scrutiny. But the reality is, you look at Al Heyman was not working with fighters and promoters to make fights that boxing fans wanted. He is the antithesis of what a boxing fan wants in a promoter. Whereas Turki Al Sheikh is fucking a godsend. Literally, he's making all promoters, as we see here, even PBC promoter, Tom Brown, all work together to make fucking super cards. So it's easy to understand why fans would be super fucking stoked by Turki Al Sheikh and why fans would be super critical and disappointed with Al Heyman. Al Heyman did nothing to give boxing fans what they wanted. What he consistently did was make fights no boxing fan was fucking asking for and delay and fucking snuff out fights that actually boxing fans were pushing for, right? Yet we're supposed to be excited and supportive of that, right? Only fucking guys like JB and fucking the rest of these same usual suspects could fucking push this kind of stuff because they just use it for race. But this has nothing to do with race. It has everything to do with boxing fans, right? You want to pay $80 for fucking Andy Ruiz versus fucking Luis Ortiz? Really? That's what you want to pay money for. If I never saw that fight, I wouldn't fucking care. I don't feel I would have missed out on fucking anything in my life, ever. Right? That's the difference. How long did we wait for fucking Floyd Mayweather Pacquiao, 8 fucking years. How long did we wait for Crawford Spence? 5 years, right? This is what he was bringing to boxing. But we're supposed to be excited by that. And then you talk about look how well these fighters are being treated and how much they're getting paid. As a boxing fan, why do I give a fuck about that? I don't care. It doesn't have anything to do with me. Good, I'm happy all athletes get paid well. But at the end of the day, I don't fucking care because I'm not seeing fucking any of that money. Really. And if they're getting paid that much, it means somebody's paying for it, you and me, which means now I have to pay fucking money for fight cards I never even asked for, right? Literally. Now they're saying David Benavidez and David Morrell did 70,000 pay-per-view buys. Who's fucking shocked and surprised by that? I mean, David Benavidez did 2 previous pay-per-views against bigger name opponents. Neither of those fights cracked 100,000 pay-per-view buys. How do you think David Benavidez versus David Morrell was going to get better numbers than fucking Plant or Andrade? Like, American boxing fans actually know who Caleb Plant is. He fought Canelo Alvarez. And they know Andrade because he's been a world champion and been around the sport for a long time. Morrell is basically a prospect who was benched by the PBC, never had a legitimate step-up fight, and been holding a WBA regular title, which nobody even gave a fuck about because it's insignificant. I like him. I picked him to win. But the fact that the PBC keeps their fighters so inactive, this is why they've all underperformed. Again, thank you, Al Heyman. It's great card, but the Saudi crowd is very underwhelming, low hype. Who cares? Are you going there? I'm not there. I fucking don't even pay attention. I don't even know what the crowd is doing. It's like being critical of the Japanese crowds. I don't fucking care. Like, if you're there, I can understand how this would be significant. I heard 160. No, that's the numbers they put out early, 160 to 170. But then what's-his-face came out and said it's closer to 70, which makes more sense. Because how is Morrell Benavidez going to do 100,000 more buys than fucking Andrade and Caleb Plant? That makes no sense. Does Andrade ever fight again? I think he should, right? He should, for sure. But who's he going to fight? He wants big money, but yet he's not a draw. Never was a draw. And getting knocked out by David Benavidez, literally the first time you faced a world champion in your whole fucking career, you got flatlined. And that's what people said about you all along. That you were fucking overhyped. You haven't fought anyone. You never even fought a fucking ex-world champion before. Andrade Plant, that would be a great fight. That's the kind of fight you would expect the PBC to give us, except that Andrade doesn't work with the PBC. So that means that fight definitely won't happen, and we'll get Charlo versus Plant, even though Charlo's going to have to be wheelchaired into the fucking ring. This fight, I'm not too disappointed by this. I know Duarte was going to fight Regis Prograis. Obviously, that was going to be a very good fight. 2 very aggressive come-forward fighters. Obviously, Regis Prograis is the name for that fight. But I think this fight is better. I think Maduno is going to fucking stop Duarte. You heard it here first. And I think it's going to be a fun, exciting fight. They all want big money when they can't sell out small venues and have no personalities. Exactly. Right? And then they walked away from good money fights, which they potentially could have used to build themselves up. But because they were afraid to take on a legitimate opponent because they might lose, they didn't take those fights, and they never built themselves up to a point where anybody actually was fucking interested in watching them. Right? Like, I couldn't tell you any fights that I've watched Andrade in outside of Benavidez, especially fights that I thought were exciting and interesting. And as far as Caleb Plant, I always said that the LDBC was overrating him, right? And it is what it is. He's similar to fighters we mentioned earlier, slick boxer with no power, not really interesting to watch, which is why I've never been a fan of him. Even though being a racist that I am, I should support all those white guys, Bivol, Plant, fucking Usyk, all those white, boring fucking slick fighters. I should be all over their nuts. But I'm consistent. I don't like that style. Don't matter fucking what color you are. Fucking Vasquez, fucking Mexican, I don't care. Fucking the Japanese fighter I just watched recently, Akui. If you're a slick boxer, mover, I'm probably not that interested in watching you fight. What do you think about Doncic joining LA? Great move for LA. Fucking for Dallas, worst thing that could have happened to them. And I'm not surprised fans are fucking pissed off. Because let's be serious. That literally is ownership sinking their team. They just went to the fucking finals last year. He's 25 years old. And you got rid of him because he's injury prone. He doesn't fucking work hard enough to stay in shape, and he's not ready. He played more minutes in last year's playoffs than any other player in the playoffs. But he's out of shape. He was injured all playoffs last year, and he still played more minutes than fucking everybody. Lomachenko is not a slick fighter. Stop, Wayne Evans. He's a front foot fucking fighter. How are you going to be a safety first defense fighter when you're on your front foot consistently? LDBC was pinning all those hopes on Plant to beat Canelo. Well, they just want anyone to beat Canelo. It didn't matter. Japanese crowds are quiet, but could feel the tension with some oohs and ahs from their fighters. Can't fight off his back foot. It's not that he can't fight off his back foot. He's just never fought that way. Even in the amateurs, Lomachenko was still a front foot fighter who used his feints and his footwork to get angles on his opponents. And they took AD, who was always injured in 32. Well, that's the irony, right? You take AD, who is called what? Mr. Street Clothes. That's his nickname, because he's always fucking in street clothes because he's always injured. And Kyrie Irving, who's fucking a mental case and forced himself out of so many teams. But yet those are the guys that are culture that you want to build on and hard working professionals. Okay. Watch the fight with Tio. He can't handle pressure. Who? Loma. It's not that he can't handle pressure. No fighter is perfect. I never understand this kind of mentality that people make it seem as if a fighter is somehow garbage because he is not perfect. Every fighter has their strengths and weaknesses. That's why styles make fights, right? Because we know certain style fighters are going to be difficult for other styles, right? There's no perfect fighter. Even the great Sugar Ray Robinson was fucking knocked out and beat, right? It is what it is. How good is Picasso? Picasso probably could be a real potential top fighter at 122. But the problem is he's pretty young and hasn't had as much opportunity to build up and get the resume he needs. And obviously now he's mandated by the WBC. He's going to get that fight, get a good payday. And he's probably a little too unseasoned for Inoue at this point. But it should be a fun fight, right? But obviously it's not the fight people are hoping to see Inoue in. We want to see him in with guys like Junto, obviously fucking my man, I can't think of his name, Bam, MJ, Ball. Like, I would love those 4 fights to be Inoue's top fights in probably the next 2 years, right? You fight fucking Picasso, then next you fight MJ. Then everybody can stop all their fucking cap. Then you fight Junto coming up in weight. Then you fight Bam or Nick Ball, right? Doesn't matter which guy is which, but regardless, those 4 fights, big names, great opponents. Bam in the States would be a great fight. Obviously, Junto in Japan would be unbelievable. You could do fucking Ball in either Saudi Arabia or England, which would be huge. So big fights. Big fights. Except Tank, of course, who never takes a real challenge. Well, that's true. Did you notice how Dante, LDBC, JB all abandoned Benavidez versus Morel, only support him versus Canelo, same as they did Plant? Yeah, because they're not fans of his. And John's never been a fan of Benavidez. He was a fan of Caleb Plant. He always was talking about how Caleb Plant would beat Benavidez, that he was the real king at 168. He was the better fighter, right? Only, of course, to then flip the script, which is what John always does. I still like to see Inui versus Chocolatito. Yeah, that is probably past its best right now. Chocolatito's last fight was at 118. Yeah, and unfortunately, there's no confirmation of him in a new fight. We were thought by probably March of this year he'd be back in the ring, potentially fighting for one of those world titles at 118. And there's also been speculation about him going back down to 115 and fighting the South African fighter who won the WBO title down there. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Like, obviously he's old, right? So if he's going to come back and do something, you know, time is of the essence. You can't sit around doing nothing for an extended period of time. It's not going to make you better. Just the opposite, right? It's only going to make you worse. So fucking get back in there, buddy. I wouldn't mind seeing Chocolatito fight another 2 times before he retires. What are your thoughts on Benavidez' old school tactics, pulling down the gloves of opponents? That's not a big deal. That's fucking normal. Everybody does that. I don't know why people make that seem as if somehow it's an issue. Like, that's boxing. Anybody that fucking is a skilled fighter is going to do that, especially against a high guard. So, I mean, I don't think it's a big deal at all. Yeah, that's not dirty, man. It's just fucking normal. The other guy could do the same fucking thing, right? It is what it is. Hey, Sean, did you see that love letter Ego put out about Tank? He has his own style with his braids and leg tattoos and is from the real streets. Yeah, I saw that. He's a fucking... Ego always been fucking sketch, man. That dude. I like it, but I could see LDB saying he's cheating. Well, they won't say he's cheating because they support him. If Canelo did it or Inui did it or fucking somebody else did it, then of course he'd be cheating, right? You know, the hypocrisy never ends with these kind of people. When we look at this card here, this De La Hoya card, it's not too bad. Darius Fulgrim, good young up-and-coming fighter. Ricardo Sandoval, good fighter. And then, of course, you got that Duarte versus Medueno fight, which is good. Keith Sims getting another opportunity to fight. You know, this card is not too bad. I'm excited about it, even though there's not any big-name opponents, but still, nonetheless, it's still is a solid fight card overall. And, you know, for up-and-coming young Mexican fighters, Golden Boy always does very well. They're kind of like the top rank of Mexico, right? They end up finding these good hidden gems that people have never heard of and sort of building them up, developing them, and giving them a showcase. So I'm sure there's fighters on this card I've never even heard of that are potentially well worth watching. We will see. But overall, it's going to be a good weekend of boxing. I'm really excited about Keyshawn becoming world champion. And obviously, next weekend, that card from Saudi Arabia, you can't beat that shit. That's going to be dynamite. But thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for jumping in. I'm going to have a drink. My throat is getting squashed, and I'm going to kick back, watch some TV before it's bedtime. So thanks, everyone, for jumping in. I'll see you next time. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. And I'll see you guys soon. Later.